right, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Can see a couple of familiar names from the last time, so thanks for joining us again. And a warm hello to all those who are joining this webinar for the first time. If we've not met yet, I am Delia. I work with the customer success team at ConvertCart. And over the years, we've done numerous audits across clients, like 1,000 plus this year itself. And this is a topic that's honestly something we've worked on extensively. So today what we've tried to do is put in the top learnings that we've got across our audits for you. We're not only going to cover the pitfalls, we're also going to see evidence-backed data about how we've overcome them. So without further ado, let's dive right in and figure out why your product pages aren't converting and how can you rescue them right away. All right. Great. So let's start at the very top, hero messaging. Now, this is something you think that most people would get right, given that it's right at the top. However, in my experience, I've seen a lot of people spend thousands of dollars, getting their ads right, getting their social media traffic, etc., to pour into their website. But the problem happens when they see really high bounce rates, right? Shopify also verifies that they see bounce rates of over 50% when traffic comes in from display ads or social media. When we looked a little closer, the problem has several nuances. I'm just going to focus on them one by one. The first aspect I want to talk about is continuity. Now, imagine you're looking for engagement rings or promoting a specific category. People look at that ad and come to your website and just, take a look at this banner. Now, it's perfect, right? But it resembles timeless jewelry a lot more compared to engagement rings. So what happens is that the hook phrase that actually got them hooked in the first place isn't really met. There's that element of discontinuity, and trust basically breaks at this point itself. So it's no surprise that even Shopify noted that we see these high bounce rates in this case. And in some cases, what's even worse is, say, a Facebook post talks about a rose gold engagement ring. We go excitedly to figure out what it's all about, just to figure out that the page you're looking for has been removed or relocated. Instantly, there's discontinuity and trust breaks. What can we do to fix this? Now, you have traffic coming in from different sources with a completely different mindset. Typically, those coming in from paid search have the highest intent. Out here, you definitely want to lead with what makes you different. People coming in from email would also have a relatively warm intent. So out here at ConvertCart, through our email marketing platform, Engage, what we do is we try to lead with exclusivity. So I'm not just talking about 15% off just for you. We try to take that a step further by even ensuring that the coupon code is dynamic. So every user gets a separate coupon code that leads to a better sense of exclusivity, right? And of course, for all the other traffic, there's definitely informational intent, which you could lead with social proof. And I'm going to talk a little more about that in the points to come. Another aspect we can look at in today's day and age are simply your UTM parameters. I'm talking specifically about the source and the term. For example, if someone's seen sneakers on Instagram and then landed on your page, a simple note like the sneakers you saw on your feed now back in stock adds a lot of authenticity and completes the journey for them. You could also understand the keywords they look for. Now, this given brand, Tikva, creates various health drinks specifically for people who are diagnosed with, say, high BP or cholesterol. So should they use these words, these keywords in their Google ads? What they can simply do is analyze UTM parameters and show different hero images to people coming in for, say, BP woes versus cholesterol woes, and actually customize or personalize the experience to a great degree, right? So we don't want to make it generic. We don't want to make it look like, someone's entered the wrong party. There's this book written by Steve Krug called Don't Make Me Think, where he clearly mentions that users don't exactly read everything on a website, right? They scan. And while they're scanning, you've got to complete that picture for them in order to ensure that they purchase at the end. Moving on to the next image. Now, I'm sure we've all come across those websites that have those picture perfect images, right? Cinematic lighting, if I may say. And I also know a lot of clients who have spent a lot of money in terms of getting super high resolution images and putting it out on their website. But the sad part is that 42% of users actually abandon purchases purely due to trust concerns. Now, the imagery may be fantastic, we're not doubting that. But what's actually lacking out here is the sense of persuasion, the trust in a brand, the trust to take things forward. So, very often when we see that perfect image, there's nothing sticky for visitors to scroll past, nothing undifferentiated about the product. And trust triggers are often hard to find in the first fold where you're looking at trust in the first place. What can we do to fix this? So by no means am I saying do not have high-res images or rich imagery. Definitely leverage that to your advantage, but design it as an infographic, especially at this phase, right? So the good stuff has done this rather well, right? They've taken an image of their product, placed it perfectly well, spoken about what differentiates it from the other products. They also have a bestseller tag and the value proposition right there in the first fold, the first thing you see when you log out or log on here. The other brand, Love Wellness, that deals into various kinds of health supplements, also does this well. Now, given that they're in the supplement industry, they ensure that the trust triggers are highlighted in the first fold. So if I look at this example, I can see the ingredients right here, a clear subscription plan, user reviews, shipping details, all in one fold. And of course, we could use progressive disclosure. You don't have to disclose everything at one go. Show the main stuff upfront, and it can always expand on click. Great. Now, coming to this one, I think it's relatively quiet compared to the other two aspects that we just saw, right? When I think about any product that, say, I've purchased, right, you always tend to link it to the reward. And the author, Neil Ayal, I think he captures this perfectly in his book called Hooked. That if you want to inculcate a habit, the easiest way to do it is sort of help people understand the reward and what they stand to gain. Now, when I think about it as a user, I picked up a fitness band lately and I didn't think much about the specifications, right? What I tried to think about more is the experience I'm going to have post that. Am I going to be more regular with my jogs? Can I compete with my colleagues and friends? Maybe in a couple of days, because I'm more focused on it, I'll receive compliments about, say, the weight I've lost on account of being more regular with exercise. So, very often we need to focus, the focus rather lies a lot on the product specifications, especially if the product is a technical one. There's also a sheer lack of focus on what the reward's going to be. How is my life going to get better by purchasing this product, right? So how can we change that? Firstly, add an ownership moment. Now, Fireman's Brew understands that there are a lot of coffee enthusiasts or connoisseurs that visit their website. So they add a well-lit banner with the product and give details about, what temperature you can brew the coffee beans in order to get the best flavor. You could also break down the ownership experience through snappy copy. This brand, Dot and Key, does this well. It talks about percentages and also uses a lot of action words in terms of noticed the reward, the benefit. People have also agreed that their lips felt a lot better, and the formula was also non-sticky and lightweight. Also, in this case, ownership-oriented social proof makes the biggest difference. Now, when we work with some brands and they tell us, yes, yes, of course, we've tried social proof, but it's not really working for us. When we delve deeper, what we realize is the kind of social proof that they run is extremely generic. For example, I worked with a brand that showed me their product page, and they mentioned 10,000 people are currently viewing this page. Now, that doesn't solve any of my doubts as a new user coming onto the website. So when we talk about social proof, we always try to make it ownership oriented at ConvertCart. So if you look at this brand right here, they have put in details, pictures, as well as videos of actual customers. When you click this, it tells a story of its own, what it's like to own the product, so people can associate themselves with the reward in a better manner. Zero optimization for related discovery. In this case, discovery just stops cold. And in our experience, this is definitely an issue when it comes to brands where new visitors form a good portion of their traffic. And I've seen brands leave as much as 10 to 20% of AOV on the table because people typically come in, they visit a given product page, but beyond that, there's no contextual discovery. It just stops cold out there. There may be a lot of static recommendations like related products, but people can't really figure how to take it further from there. It may not be connected to what they're looking at. And bundle prompts may also be missing. So if I'm new to the industry as well as the brand, it's not really helping my cause right now. What fixes can we apply here? Compare similar products. So if I'm looking at office furniture, I've purchased tables, I'm now looking at chairs. Which chair would make most sense for me given the number of office hours anyone, would pretty much work at now. Help users compare the two, figure which one's better for them. The other aspect is show what different quantities of a product might look like to give them a good assessment of what would work best for their need at this point. Track interaction rates and A/B test position. Now, this is something we do extensively at ConvertCart. We pretty much let data drive the way. So we not only track interaction rates, but with reference to discovery, right? We A/B test where different, say, product recommendations, carousels would look best. In our research and backed by majority of what's worked for our clients, mid-page seems to be the best. We had a couple that proposed, putting it a little higher up, but that honestly affected their CLS scores pretty badly. So if it's mid-page versus bottom, for most businesses, I'd say mid-page, is a clear winner. Missing the brand differentiator card in the first fold. I think this one is purely about branding, folks. Users obviously would spend 80% of their time or more in the first fold, right? So we definitely want to win their trust ASAP because they're obviously ready to pay a lot more. Like 46% are ready to pay for a brand that they trust. When we look at this closer, now I'm sure product managers work really hard to build a fantastic product, no doubt there. But very often we see, especially SMEs, focus too much on product features, right? Brand recall is overall, missing, and this can be quite a detrimental factor, especially for brands that require subscription, like I'm talking e-vapes, makeup, supplements, etc. And of course, lack of trust icons can also not really work to your advantage here. What are the fixes that we could look at? A simple why you and not something that I've looked at before your website can make the biggest difference. This SMA has clearly mentioned their core differentiators within the first fold. They're handmade, paraben-free, not tested on animals, right? So it caters to majority of their population, right here. The population interested, that is. Guarantee a safe checkout. Don't always assume that people know that your website's safe and has the right, checkout medium. Just specify it, highlight it, make it easier, remove that bit of friction for your users. Try and use a microcopy overlay over a hero image. For example, certain embroidery and pottery products, when the hero image there clearly specifies hand finished in Portugal, it gives it a different sense of authenticity and trust. Now, Foodie is an Australian brand focused on ready-made food. And when this brand was taking off, they tried and tested different kinds of microcopy over their hero image. What worked best is when they related it to the zero waste campaign that was also run out there. So they focused on zero waste, maximum taste to cater to the working population, and it really worked for them. Their conversions definitely went up here. All right, this is a fun one, impulse buyers. We've seen impulse buyers actually change the game for a lot of small and medium enterprises, especially during holiday season. But the key factor here is that it works great only when checkout is made frictionless, right? 49% of online purchases can actually happen on impulse as per Klarna. When we look at the problem closer now, typically impulse buyers will have a high click-through rate. That means they're keen on understanding a bit more, but very often we don't see a very good add to cart rate at the end of the day. Sometimes certain brands I've noticed try a bit too hard. Like there was a brand that sold fragrances and really wanted to convert people on impulse. But they went a step ahead and said there's only, 1 unit remaining. Now, what if people wanted to buy more than 1 unit for gifting? It was holiday season. So this is where things can look really inauthentic, right? And we don't want that to happen. And no targeted microcopy justifications as well. What are the fixes we could use? Now, I think the key here is to find middle ground, right? So micro nudges and maybe talking about what's left in stock that's connected to your product feed so it shows the right number, or perhaps mention the shipping time if they order within a given time span. Tiny Rituals, the small LA jewelry brand, actually did this well. They, in fact, even increased their conversions by 21% by simply mentioning limited quantity as well as a non-intrusive option to get a personalized offer on their website. Well, we work really hard on, highlighting the CTA as well. So immediate incentives can just be put there directly. And of course, offer one-tap checkout options. This US skincare brand added Apple Pay and actually saw 17% more mobile purchases. All right, let's talk a bit about the information layout now, because I think nothing breaks a shopper's momentum than poorly organized information or chaos at the end of the day. Very often we see 68% of shoppers, right, abandon product pages purely because information is not relayed in the right way. We're talking about maybe too much of text, key information that a user needs, say benefit-driven information, returns, delivery details, etc. Apparently missing, or it may be buried way lower than required. So how could we sort this bit out? Firstly, accordions are of great help here. So if you do have a lot of aspects that you need to talk about, simply organize it using an accordion. So users can pretty much click the drop down and get whatever information they need. Understand your customer objections using user-generated content as much as possible and see that they're addressed around the primary CTA itself, like this brand has done right here. And you can also secure as well as move any expert quotes mid-page. Like this brand has moved quotes by the New York Times, Forbes, etc., bang in between their product page. It definitely serves a great way to showcase what your brand has done and what top brands are talking about the same. Now, the presence of UGC, which isn't shoppable. I think user-generated content is like gold, right, in this scenario, but when used correctly. It can definitely influence, a lot of purchasing decisions, 79% as per this source, only if you can quickly identify it. Now, I once worked with a clothing and lifestyle brand who did everything right. And we also, in this case, had a lot of users put out pictures on Instagram proudly wearing their outfits, which is great. But when you actually go to click these pictures, it takes you nowhere, right? Whether it's on their website or otherwise. So, they definitely inspire trust, look great, real people, but they can't be clicked. Shop the Look, which is very popular nowadays, was also not available in this case. So this is definitely something we want to avoid and pretty much overcome this friction when it comes to our product pages. So firstly, you can turn every UGC tile into a clickable path. The brand Girlfriend Collective does this in an amazing way, some of the best ways we've seen online. So in their review section, which falls just below their product, if I click this right now, it's going to take me to that product page, this very size, and this very color. So I don't have to start from scratch. I don't have to shop from scratch and figure out, what to do in this case. You could also create UGC mid-page with a CTA that says add to cart, or simply add the shop to look function where you create a look And instead of asking people to check out your products from scratch and pick them out, you could add them separately so users can just select whatever they like and complete that look. Eases the process and definitely works as a major boost to sales on the whole. No intelligent opt-ins for later sales. Now, when many businesses come to us, and the first question we ask them typically when it comes to email opt-in is, what have you worked with opt-ins before? What has the success rate been? So very often they mention, of course, we've got opt-ins. We are like, great, let's take a look at them. And sometimes it's just subscribe to our emails, which is sent to new users, to repeat users. And once in my experience, I've even seen it sent to cart abandoners. So, it's great that 20% of visitors may convert on the first visit, but 60% may need that personalized nudge at a given point in time. So you definitely don't want to have non-contextual pop-ups or just something that's too generic or not differentiated basis the purchase funnel and where I stand right now in the purchase funnel. What are the fixes we could use? Definitely use behavior-based triggers. Ensure that people have at least been on your website for some time, understand what you do, and perhaps then, work on the pop-up. You can also review various intrusive versus non-intrusive options depending on the nature of visitors coming in. Contextual copy. So if I'm running various certificate courses, right? 3 months of a free course is something that's definitely going to make sense to me rather than just a subscribe now option. If I'm selling t-shirts for that matter and something most users like is sold out, I could definitely also ask for an email address with a very clear CTA about let me know when it's back. So you're giving something that's relevant, that's contextual to their part of the whole purchase journey. And of course, connect opt-ins with cart recovery emails. This is something we at ConvertCart do very, very often. The second we capture someone's email ID, we ensure that we don't, send annoying emails. We try to customize it, add the user's name into the subject line. And when it comes to cart abandonment emails, we even try and accommodate the name of a product or two that you left in cart, so as to make it totally personalized to your journey and not something generic, which most people would honestly just mark as spam. So the price value perception gap. Now, very often people land on a website that may really look great, awesome looking PDP, but they don't purchase primarily because there's just no reference point and they don't know if it's, worth spending that much at that point in time. So they pretty much hit the brakes on a purchase. So here, people may be unable to see what's included in the product or have no reference point with respect to pricing, basically competition, market rates, etc. Also, the reward is very unclear. So they look at it as more of a gamble at the end of the day rather than a gain. That's something that's going to make their life better. In this case, yes, we can highlight aspects like your returns and warranty. That's the non-monetary cost savings. Don't be shy about mentioning that, shipping is free. Everyone's doing that. We cannot assume that shoppers would know that at first go. Also, if you have financing options, you could, highlight them right beneath the product name or perhaps, near a CTA. It would work to your advantage because especially for businesses that are selling high value products, reduce that anxiety, right? That's related to cost and make sure that whatever options you've got are available, clear and out there. Too many variant choices. I'm sure we've all been in that spot where we enter a parlor and there are too many ice cream flavors. You just don't know which one to choose. Now, that's decision fatigue in real life right there. And frankly speaking, when it comes to conversions, it can cause a huge number. We're talking 38% of cart drop-offs, right? It's called the paradox of choice. Now, you don't want to have that on your website because ultimately it's just going to confuse people. So we're talking endless color sizes, no tags that tell you what's a bestseller, trending, or most popular, or variant names can be a bit too, technical. So what you could do out here is use useful tags like this brand, Nomad, has specified limited edition or a special edition. It's available in different colors, so you could pretty much select whichever icon works for you right here. You could show clear labels and include bundles as well, right, to avoid confusion. And definitely add short variant descriptions so users know what they're looking for and how to get it. Too many different buying nudges. Well, nobody really likes to end up on a site which just pulls them in different directions, right? Like 2 to 3 CTAs, 2 to 3 time-bound offers popping up, and other newsletters, etc., fighting for attention with the add to cart button. We don't want that at the end of the day. It gets too confusing and even overwhelming, and ultimately leads to a high drop-off rate. Needless to say, the best solution here is to have one nudge per fold. This brand Bulletproof has done it well, where it's also in contrasting colors, so it catches your eye directly. And they've mentioned their coupon code right here above the CTA. That's a smart strategy to adopt, right? Ensure that the CTA text aligns with your buyer's state. So for this brand, they actually improve clicks by about 15% simply by adding the right CTA. Just one CTA, they keep it clean. For example, if they run out of any given ceramic product, instead of purchase it, they'll also give you an option to pre-order if it's not in place. So that can also be a smart way to sort of amend the CTA and address the customer exactly where they are in their purchase journey. Of course, we want to keep it clean and suppress too many overlays during sale periods and even during business as usual, which can just lead to a poor overall site experience. Upsell and cross-sell clutter. Now, we're all about upsell and cross-sell in general. Product recommendations, again, when done right, have actually yielded a lot of revenue for different businesses we've worked with. However, adding too many too soon and without the right data backing it up can actually have a detrimental effect and even reduce conversions in some cases. So you don't want your product display pages to overloaded, too many cross-sells appearing before the primary CTA and contextually irrelevant add-ons at the end of the day. Try and delay your upsells until your cart or checkout confirmations, just so you understand the user a bit better, right? And can then recommend things also better. Use contextual copy. I think Adidas sort of nails this, because once you add the right shoes to the cart, they'll actually put in the right copy saying these will match perfectly, and showcase socks which will actually go well with the pair of shoes that you've selected. And of course, show a maximum of 3 relevant accessories, just so we don't overwhelm the user at any phase. Coming to the feature versus benefit issue. Now, most users, when we did a survey, actually preferred benefit-led descriptions. But still, many brands are very focused on the features of a product, right? We worked with a suitcase brand that spoke about how they're using first-grade aluminum that can also be used by aeroplanes, for that matter. And they missed out on the actual focus the actual focus on the benefit. So they wanted to talk about how it's durable and lightweight, right? And can be carried anywhere for different kinds of trips. So technical jargon sometimes can dominate the copy. And very often we focus a lot on the feature, just miss out on the reward or the emotional framing per se. What can we do to fix this? Ritual Vitamins, which is a brand that basically has numerous supplements, ensure that they've registered this actually. It's a registered trademark, made traceable, wherein every product they talk about the ingredients and you can actually note, what's going into something that you're going to consume. Translate features into outcomes, maintain that emotional frame, because that's what people are going to connect to a lot better. You could also use visuals and icons to make this happen. This furniture brand actually conveys this superbly. They have awesome imagery and their copy is also very catchy. Make room for a better living, automatically focusing on the reward. right? So rather than feature-based selling, they're talking about the benefit of moving to this brand. Of course, you could use different kinds of icons to denote how your product may be, more luxurious or cater to a set crowd. And finally, lack of contextual trust signals typically where hesitation peaks. Now, at ConvertCard, we've understood that clients are often going through these different phases of the trust funnel. And as users, I'm sure we can all connect with these aspects, especially when we come across a new brand. Does it look sketchy? Am I paying too much? Are returns allowed? What's the delivery like? What sort of information do I have to give if I'm expected to create an account, right? So, we often see cases where certain essential information may be 2 to 3 folds deep, where people may not really scroll beyond 60%. Very often, brands don't understand the aspects that are actually causing the anxiety. So they're unable to reassure clients at the right time. And of course, the trust cues can be really weak in most cases. In order to overcome this, we could always focus on the top product benefits right under the primary CTA, right? Of course, the prerequisite here is to understand this bit, right? So we don't, address things which aren't really a problem. This one's also worked great with most of our clients. Flank the image gallery with a short, high-rated review, right? Nothing boosts trust than actually having someone who's tried and tested the product talk about it. So keep that right there, right below what somebody is, going to look at. And always make your money back guarantee look more dependable, in contrast to the call to action, of course, like we can see in this brand. Right. So I think that brings me to the end of my presentation. If I've got to sum up all of this today for everyone on the call, what I've realized is there are a lot of points and a lot of fixes that have worked for our clients across industries. But the common thread, I think, out here would be empathy at the end of the day. Right? Users definitely want to go onto a website or a product page where it pretty much says, like, I see you, I understand you, and I've solved all of the questions that you may have, or, reduced the friction points that may come up. So brands ultimately that focused on reassurance actually saw better conversions. Now, yes, there are a lot of fixes today, but the good news is that you don't have to implement all of them at one go. We've seen incremental improvements and move the needle in terms of conversion rates, even by implementing a few strategically driven by data. So we'd love to, open up for questions right now. And we also do free website audits. So we'd be happy to take a look at your website and conduct an audit completely free of cost by our CRO experts. And of course, help you in your conversion journey. So with that, I'd like to open up for questions. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining, and have a great day ahead. Thanks again. Until next time. Bye-bye.